Everyone's got those songs that make them go, oh man, I felt that. Songs that resonate with their own individual circumstances and bring them together with others through shared connection. But the same song is guaranteed to speak to different people in vastly different ways. So join Dayton and I, once childhood neighbors in Marathon City, Wisconsin, as we talk through the songs that have struck a chord with us. We'll discuss the similar messages we've heard upon our listens, the lessons we've learned through our own interpretations, and the deeper topics we're navigating as our unique journeys continue beyond our hometown. Welcome to Marathon Mixtapes. Dayton, it's been 1 week since our last episode. How are we going to finish Volume 1 of Marathon Mixtapes?
See what you did there already. But before I spoil the surprise, I guess, I do want to say this song that I've selected for our final episode of Volume 1 of Marathon Mixtapes, sure, I picked it, but it really is our song, Comrade. I really think this is a good way to cap off a lot of the conversations that we've had so far, and a good way to dig a little bit deeper in our friendship here a little bit too. So the song that I've selected for episode 10 is Odds Are by Barenaked Ladies. I had not heard about this song until you showed it to me earlier this year, I think. It was not all that long ago, and I remember distinctly putting it on before my commute home from work one day, and it was exactly what I needed. There's something about this song that cuts through the noise for me, and I think part of it is certainly the way it sounds. Another part of it is the fun, uplifting lyrics, and of course there's an element to it too where this was something you sent me, whether it was consciously or not, to sort of help me calm my nerves and find a little bittersweet sanctuary in the noise of modern times.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually have this song on a playlist now that is simply called Comfort Videos. I have everything from Jaden Animations videos to, oh boy, like N64 soundtracks on there. And
those can be some good ones, those chippy tunes.
Absolutely. And this song serves as a nice little sort of centerpiece to it all. I don't have a whole lot of individual music videos on there, and this one has a special place there. And before getting too deep into the lyrics and why the song has become a little bit of a safe space for me, I wanted to ask a little bit about your background with the song and why you decided to share it earlier this year, if you remember even.
Sure. I don't remember exactly what might have caused me to share this song, but this is a song that I think also has stuck with me occasionally. It stuck with me, but it has popped up from time and time again when the world calls upon it. I myself am not a huge Barenaked Ladies fan, I would say, but the Barenaked Ladies are definitely a pop band that I feel are always kind of in the background of the popular zeitgeist. I feel like they always have that song that everyone knows that's played on the radio at some point with some regularity, but it wasn't they weren't a group that I consistently sought out. But if the audiences had a, keen ear, I think one of the most famous songs by the Barenaked Ladies is 1 Week, which I actually don't know too much beyond the fact that Weird Al did a cover of it in his Jerry Springer song. And I think the only other Barenaked Ladies song I might know is like If I Had $1 Million. I think that was Barenaked Ladies.
Yeah, those were the two that I was thinking of beyond this one too. And this one really soars above those for me by comparison.
Sure, yeah. I think same here. Odds Are was like the third Barenaked Ladies song that I know. But the reason why I knew of this song, I think, is because of its music video. So the leader, like the head of Barenaked Ladies, I should do a search to see look up his name. Ed Robertson. He's really good friends with Bernie Burns from Rooster Teeth. I don't know if you are familiar with Rooster Teeth, but they were a big group in my high school to early college days. They did a lot of machinima work, And what machinima is
Hmm.
basically like cartoons using like video game models. So Rooster Teeth, I think one of their most famous things that they spawned was a series called Red versus Blue, which was this really long series that used the video game Halo and all the subsequent iterations of Halo, like Halo 2, Halo 3, Halo Reach, etc., etc. And what they would do is, I think, write a script, write a story. It was usually very comedic, and then I think do the voices, do the lines, and then go into the game with like some capture software, and then move the characters around to make him like do actions and kind of basically making a movie using video game assets.
Right.
Eventually, they spawned into a really big company that did a lot of other things, and then they used to do occasionally back in the day some live action shorts where the guys of Rooster Teeth would do like funny sketch comedy things. And surprisingly, Ed Robertson of the Barenaked Ladies would pop up from time and time again and be part of those sketches. And then eventually, I think Barenaked Ladies, they came back in the early 2000s or 2010s ish, and Rooster Teeth actually helped make the music videos of a lot of their songs from around the era of Odds Are. And
Hmm.
uh, if you look up the Odds Are music video, you'll see a lot of people from Rooster Teeth. So if you're familiar with Rooster Teeth at all, you'll see a lot of the talent, I guess, like Barbara, Bernie, Jeff, Gus, and some other ones that I'm forgetting the name of right now. But really, they had this big collaboration, and I think Odds Are wasn't the only music video they did for them. But that's kind of how in I I guess this is how I fell into the song for the first time, where I think I
Hmm.
was like watching some Rooster Teeth podcast, and Bernie was like, "Oh yeah, we were made a music video for my good friend Ed Robertson of the Barenaked Ladies," and then I saw it, and then something about it like stuck with me. Like you said, I think the song, for how cheesy and poppy it is, like a lot of Barenaked Ladies songs, there's like an undertone that I pick up that I think I also feel I would consider, I guess, what did you say? It was like a safe space of sorts for you?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Just
something
like when
reassuring
I'm
about the
feeling
song.
exactly like when I'm feeling just overwhelmed or just kind of aimless, I throw this song on, kind of hypes me up a little bit, and even though the lyrics, like you said, are a little bit cheesy, a little bit quirky, poppy, kind of, they're kind of always been a half comedy band, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's always a tongue in cheek element to Bare Naked Lady songs, and this does have that, but it also just has a really solid message that cuts through the noise, as I was sort of describing. It sort of pushes the nonsense off to the side and says, here's the reality of what it's like to live life and take the risk that is living life and why it's worth it, kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It almost makes it sound like higher stakes than it usually is for me, but there's something about that reminder of, hey, everything's going to be okay, and everything's kind of a roll of the dice, so you might as well play. That's actually like a lyric taken directly from the bridge there. Odds are long, so why not play? And it reminds me a little bit of how sometimes life and the experience of life is described as a dance, or if
Oh,
you want to
sure.
get metaphysical less than 10 minutes into this, some people even say, oh, it's like God dancing through us, the dance of life and experiencing everything that needs to be experienced. So it reminds me to play. It reminds me to be engaged, be present, and just be like, yeah, I'm ready for the next thing, let's go.
But Dayton, don't you know God doesn't play dice? I think that's like an Albert Einstein quote. But so,
Sure.
something
But
about
he does
this,
dance, though. I'll give you that.
I'm sure he does. I'm sure he's a great dancer. Um, what this song also reminds me of, if you ever heard of the song "Stupid Ways to Die" or "Dumb Ways to Die."
I thought about that song too. Wasn't that
Yeah.
like a PSA for, was it like English public transport or something like that, reminding you to
Oh,
mind the
yeah.
gap?
Like the London. Oh, it was a Australian public awareness campaign
Oh, yes.
made
Okay.
by
Australian.
the Australian Metro System for railway safety. That song, I think, was just a very cute little video of these little like jelly bean characters like dying in just really weird and grotesque sometimes ways and having all these accidents. And it was a very like also catchy song, I thought. And I feel like it has a lot of parallels with Odds Are by the Barenaked Ladies because the verses are all like kind of listing different ways to die or different things that could go wrong. So I guess to
Yeah.
jump into the lyrics now, just to share with our audience, yeah, like the song starts with the line "struck by lightning." Sounds pretty frightening, but you know the chances are so small. And then the different verses have different ways, not necessarily like fatal accidents, but like stuck by a bee sting or hit by the A train. That's probably pretty fatal. Or crash in an airplane, killed by a great white or a meteorite. I guess there ain't a way to go that's fun.
It's one of my favorite lines. I love that. I guess there ain't no way to go. That's fun. It's so good. Their
Yeah.
delivery on this is, it's their typical, even if you're familiar with only the three Bare Naked Lady songs that we are, they've sort of got like a motor mouthed kind of approach to their lyrics, just pack a lot of things in pretty densely. And this song is in that same space for sure. They've got
Yeah.
a really good, like, sort of flowy rhythm to it. They get into the pocket of the vocals, like, right from the get go. And the way that these lines are delivered, not just the lines themselves, but the delivery is very humorous, absolutely, as well.
Yeah. And I also like how, in the midst of all these different ways that you could get stung by a bee or hit by lightning or hit by a plane, they juxtapose it with also the odds of falling in love by the end of the song. And
Yes.
I think I have that like quote, God doesn't play dice, but all these odds of life in general. It reminds me as I was listening to the song again in preparation for this recording, it reminded me of what we talked about last week about how miraculous something as simple of a concept of friendship can be, that in life, things happen and there are things that you may want to happen and things you may not want to happen, like falling in love or getting struck by lightning. Odds are this and X, Y, and Z. And I like how the point of the song, at least for me, or what I take away from it is, like you have all these odds, but might as well just play and engage,
Mhm.
right? Like it very much goes to the tried and true adage of, you miss every shot you don't take.
Right.
And I think there's that like positive message there. And I can see maybe why you consider it a song that's kind of like a safe space or feel good song, because it really just boils everything down in terms of like everything that happens in life around you into stuff that just happens. And
Right.
you never know what could happen. So why not try? Right? Like you can do the math in your head all night long and all day long, but you might as well just figure out what will actually happen. And again, I love the bridge as well, and I think that is one of my favorite parts of the song too, where I have the lyrics in front of me and the bridge is just two lines, very short, and all it is sure, things go wrong, but I'll take my chances. Odds are long, so why not play? And I think it's got that great just push of just reassurance. I think that those two lines to me give me like a sense of reassurance to not retreat back into like a shell, and
Right.
engage in life, engage in the world around me, even if there's a risk that I might be hurt or something bad might happen. There's still a lot of potential for good things that could happen.
Right. And what I appreciate about this song too is within the first verse, we have already some senses of scale. It plays with the format of the fact that this message is being delivered through a song, right? So
Yeah.
it's talking about these big cosmic things, aside from maybe a bee sting, I guess. I don't know if I would call that cosmic. For some people, it's not so good. But it's talking about these literally life-ending things, being struck by lightning and bee sting, but it ain't nothing but a bee thing. Again, this is Barenaked Ladies we're talking about, so of course they're going to be dorky. But the they then talk about the things that can even happen by the end of the song. So that there's a 23-4 to 1 that you can fall in love by the end of this song. So get up, tell the bookie, put a bet on, not a damn thing will go wrong. They bring it back immediately, pull you back into the moment in a much better way than any song that's like, live in the moment. Yeah. This, just by the manner of the way that the song is structured and the things that they're talking about, it pulls you in, right? And that's something that I think goes really easily unappreciated when you listen to this song, because it is this sort of dorky kind of dad rock kind of vibe, but also it's 2013, so it kind of has a stomp clap vibe to it, But it's I some people can see that as a detriment. I think it helps keep the song really accessible. It's a song you could show your mom for sure, but that groundedness and the way that it kind of uses humor to hook you in and then surprises you with saying like, hey, be here now because there could be some excellent things that happen to you. So play with us, right? It feels like they're practicing what they preach in a way, where the way that they're writing music, the way that they're talking to us, the way that they're having fun, they're trying to set the tone for not just how to listen, but how to walk away from this song and how to actually put the lesson into practice, which is cool. I think there's a lot of power in that. If the performance of your song can make somebody act a little bit differently, like on the way out, like it's like mirror not just the message of the song, mirror the song, mirror the energy. And there's a lot of songs that attempt to do that, but because this one is the way it is, it actually accomplishes it. It takes all the strengths of what, even though my image of Barenaked Ladies is fairly limited, I will admit, everything that I like about them and everything that seems to be their shtick is dialed up, working at full force here. And good on them for writing a song like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think shtick, just the word alone, encompasses the Barenaked Ladies. I like how you call them dad rock, because I'm pretty sure they are like the poster child of dad rock, because they're like four guys that are in like their mid 40s to early 50s at this point, just jamming out, having a fun time whenever they're on stage, right? Like they're just having fun as dads. And they have that wisdom where they have all these years of experience behind them, or like in them, and they can see the bright side of life, I guess you could call it, the silver lining, and to just not worry too much about the bad stuff and to just kind of learn to move on. It's such a kind of like a wild comparison when you think about like this song versus a previous song that we've talked about in our podcast, like Endless Bummer, where it's all about like 19-year-olds aren't cool. And then you have like these dads in their late 40s, like, yeah, I'm rocking a guitar and like Hawaiian shirt. People, and like you can see probably like a teenager off in the distance, like dragged to this concert event, like, wow, that's so cringe. But the dad rock guys are just like, hey, we're having fun. Isn't that the point of life? That kind of thing.
Oh yeah, it's even in this music video where we can get into that here a little bit too, where they kind of play characters. They kind of got faces that looks like you could trust, right? Where it's like if they were your buddies, if they were your like buddy's dad, you'd be like, oh man, if I needed to like change a tire or something, I could call them, and even if they didn't know how to change a tire, they would help me figure it out. They give off that kind of vibe, which is super fun, especially for the theme of the music video, where they are local newscasters for BNL4, Barenaked Ladies 4. Great. All sorts of great visual gags in this video, but the whole premise is they're like a local news station reporting on the apocalypse, essentially. Now, what is the apocalypse in this music video?
Everything is going wrong. It's just like absolutely
Every
everything.
conceivable version of the apocalypse: zombies, volcanoes, meteors, and
Robot
there's like
invasion, like alien
robot
invasion.
invasion. Yeah, so good.
Global warming. I think like the temperatures keep rising.
Yeah,
And not
great
not
detail.
only not only volcanoes, but volcanoes erupting with dinosaurs. Like dinosaurs
Yes.
are flying out of the volcano.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They'll pull up the weather map and there's a giant like fissure down the middle of the United States.
yeah, just everything going wrong. And what's also what I like about the music video is like you have all that going on, and they're all smiling and just having
Yeah.
a good time. And I think it's that like perseverance, I guess, or just, because it's not like ignorant in any way. It doesn't feel like
Mm-mm.
that. It's just like, because with the lyrics of the song, like chances things are going to go wrong. And I also like how the way they sing the song in the music video is obviously, lip synced. But these bare naked ladies are pretending to be newscasters, weathermen, sports guys, and they're like talking to each other like you'd see newscasters do, but it's the lyrics of the song, which is really
Yes.
funny because when they talk about different ways to die, it's like, killed by a great white or meteorite. I think one of the guys says that to Ed Robertson, and then he looks at the camera and kind of shrugs like at the camera and being like, well, I guess there ain't no way to go that's fun. Like the way
Yeah.
they play up the lyrics of the song as like what you might hear on like a news report at like late night news at 10 p.m. or something. It's
Yeah.
it honestly makes it better for me. And again, it just raises that level of just like dad rock, just old guys having fun, just to another level
Yes.
for me.
Yeah. And like their continual performance through it all, the fact that they're smiling, the fact that they're trying to be these happy-go-lucky kind of newscasters through it all. Like you said, it feels like a perseverance. It feels like they're still trying, like the show must go on. Like, oh, this is just what happens. We have to continue the newscast. We have to
Mm-hmm.
keep reporting the news, no matter how much the news is literally like igniting our studio at present, which is a great it's a great concept from a music video, honestly, because it's such an immediate visual gag that anybody who sort of grows up with those local newscasters, you're like, okay, I get it. I know these guys, and yeah, there nothing's gonna stop them from reporting the news. Nothing's gonna stop them from being these positive sort of forces in the community. And in the case of this band, it's like a positive force within popular music, you know. So I I really enjoy this music video. It's part of what makes it a comfort video for me
Mm-hmm.
because as you were describing up top too, this was made by Rooster Teeth. While I wasn't super familiar with Rooster Teeth's output during that time, I remember watching Red versus Blue with you for a little bit, and I remember some of their videos, and I recognize a couple faces once in a while when they show up in other places across the internet. But I think it does really accurately capture the feel of YouTube at that time a lot
Oh, for
because
sure.
yeah, right? So that's kind of comforting for me too, because there's a lot to love about that time on the internet. It was, ugh, do I want to
Before the
dare say
Mr.
it was like,
Beast phase.
yeah, like that's kind of where I'm headed here. It's like the last time I really remember just like unabashedly enjoying myself on the internet without feeling like I was being manipulated by the architecture of the thing of the media that I was consuming, you know.
Yeah,
It
we're
felt a
like,
little bit more ragtag communal, you know. I think about all of the YouTubers of that time that I did watch, you know, a lot of video game reviewers like Peanut Butter Gamer, who's thank God still around. He also has big sort of bare naked lady band like energy as well. Just he's a dad now. Crazy how time happens. But
mhm.
I think there's even though Bare Naked Ladies was established, and even though Rooster Teeth was growing into this full blown company as you described, there's something a little bit like guerrilla about all of this, and I love it for that.
Yeah, I mean, it does also remind me because it was like early 2000s, 2010s. Like, I think the album came out 2013, and it did really feel like the era of YouTube before things were all about monetization, and it was just like a public space for people to make videos that they wanted to make, that they wanted to show the world, to like make them laugh or something, without, not overtly, without considering like, is this just going to get me money and clicks? It's like, no, I just want to do this because it's fun, and
Right.
hopefully other people that also think this is fun can see this, and then we can build like a community out of it, instead of like this very corporate, like money grabbing thing that you see a lot nowadays, where even in modern YouTubers, like there's a schism between some of the OG YouTubers and like the people that are in this space more recently, like Mr. Beast, where
Mm-hmm.
there's like a clear, I don't want to say us versus them, but like there's still the people that are trying to hold on to that old atmosphere of YouTube, where they just want to make content for, fans, and not to say that they don't want to, follow the trends or anything, but it's less like money grubby. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like just like this is clearly just for the clicks or just for the
Right.
like views. Like no, like I miss the days when, content creators and people making videos like listen to their audience and wanted to try to make something that they wanted to make, as well as appeal to their audience,
Right.
with like money not even really being a factor. Like it was just kind of like, oh, that's nice
Mm-hmm.
that I can get a lot of people to watch this, and then it can sustain me economically and financially, and so that I can keep doing this. But it's not. It was never like the primary goal of doing, this thing.
Right. Yeah. This era of YouTube, and even this song to a lesser degree, I'm maybe stretching a little bit, but I feel an element of this as well, that this kind of art in this era of internet art specifically was made because the creator needed to make it, right? It's not just because, oh, what will do well, or like you said, what will earn me money, or what will serve the algorithm? What keywords do I need to stitch together to come up with a video idea in order to please the SEO gods? It this feels like this song and videos of this kind of tone feel like they just needed to be made because they're like, oh yeah, I just had this idea, I needed to get it out, and I don't know, maybe people will like it. And I think any art that comes from that kind of place is at like a base level just like interesting, because it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is just your feelings manifest, this is just your mind kind of manifest, I can just take a peek into see how you think. This is how you see the world. And I might not agree with it. I might not even enjoy it, but like, oh, that's kind of fun just to see how your head works. And I, it, not to be too presumptuous here, but I think that's really what we're aiming to do with this show, too. That's why I'm really proud of it, because in a lot of ways it is functioning as our virtual diaries to each other, just recordings of our conversations and the questions that we've wanted to ask each other, but there's not really like an avenue to sit down and be like, so Jordan, what do you think about my faith journey? Or, oh, what do you think about the way that American work culture operates? It's that's a little bit much for us just hanging out and having a couple of brewskis, right? But we know we want to talk to each other about these kind of things, and we know that we are willing to listen and to share that kind of impulse to have these conversations with other people. I think that's what I appreciate about this too, and what reconnects me back to this song too a little bit. It's like, oh, I feel like we're kind of on the same wavelength at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Mm,
again, to just like megaphone that idea and maybe add on to it a little more, the fact that like we had this idea of creating this little podcast just to share these conversations that we both not only want to have, but I guess there's a little, perhaps dare I say, hubris in thinking that these are conversations that we think that other people might benefit from having with other people, not necessarily us, but just voicing their thoughts on some of these topics. And
Mm-hmm.
as you were saying that, I was just kind of like looking at the lyrics of the song, and I was just staring at the end of the second verse where the lines are, "So get up. No, it's never gonna let up. So you might as well sing along," which like kind of mirrors that sentiment where it's like, oh, we're having these conversations and we're just doing it, right? Like with other no other major thoughts of like we want to have these conversations and we want to just share it with everybody and we're just gonna do it. So,
Yep.
you could just join along and sing along and, have these thoughts too about how the world is going on around you. And the song itself, again, we've been like kind of going over the lyrics repeatedly, kind of saying how we think, the song is just a way to try and encourage people, to get out and quote unquote play. And I think this song is such a great cap to our first volume. I know how you said that like this was perhaps like our pick for the end, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I had expected you to put forth this song as one to talk about, because I think when we were still in the planning stages of this podcast, when you decided to pick this as your fifth song, I was like, really? And then I listened to it again, and then I think I had like a change of heart after listening to it in the context of our podcast, our structure, because it's such a great cap in terms of like themes the theme of like life, which I feel like we try to talk about in a very broad sense with our podcast. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember in a previous episode of ours, we talked about how we really liked those end credit songs, or those songs that we kind of listen to while we ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
I find this song in this context feels either like that, where it's like a song to ride off into the sunset, or even better, the main character of whatever said movie we're making rides off into the sunset and the lights of the movie theater turn on, and then and
Ooh.
then this song plays.
Yeah.
It reminds me very much of like how in a previous episode, Foreign Girls by the Bleachers, that song from that album, or that album was like a life, but the song that represented the death of the character was like track, like 8 or 9, and then Foreign Girls was track 10 as like the epilogue.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this song is not like like something past an epilogue, but we could.
Is it a post-credit song?
It does, yeah. It kind of does feel like a post-credit song, but I keep thinking of this song in like a metaphysical sense, where it's like not even like post-credits; it's like post whatever this is, because like the credits is still part of the
Yeah.
movie, right? And
Right.
I keep thinking of this song as post all of it, as more of like a kind of fourth wall break, where I look into the camera and be like,
Ooh.
odds are long, but why don't you play? Kind of deal.
Right. It's definitely an invitation of sorts. And I love the image of the lights coming up in the theater. And I think for me, I had a slightly different image in mind, but I
Sure.
think it also fits like this idea of like this is the first song that plays after last call at a bar, right? Where it's
Like
like
after
like
Semisonic's closing time.
exactly. Like it has a little bit of closing time energy to it, but it feels like a little bit more of a button and a little bit more of, like I said, an invitation. Like it's giving you the impetus to do something next as opposed to ending something, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
critical difference, I think, for the kind of structure that we kind of have in mind here now, and it feels like the moment that, oh, the chairs are going up on the tables and it's like we really got to get out now, and it's up to us like what the next thing looks like. And this environment that we're in, where we're not, watching a movie or having some cocktails or something. It's like we're not the next thing isn't going to be handed to us. It's us now. We have to take the next step. We have to dance. We have to play. So I think you and I are on the same wavelength here. I
Yeah.
honestly do.
And I think the song also kind of tempers the trepidation of something as, quote unquote scary as doing something new or doing something where the odds are maybe against you. And the chorus just repeatedly singing, the odds are that we also just like, again, reiterating the whole like dad goofy vibe. The chorus line isn't that, odds are we're going to be all right. It's most of it is the odds are we're probably going to be all right. They use probably in the sentences. So
Yes.
again, it's not super like definitive. It's like, the odds are, we'll probably be fine.
Yeah. And we'll be all right tonight. We'll be all right for another night. It's not like we'll be all right forever. It's just like, oh, we'll just get to the next thing.
Yeah.
Again, like they do a good job in this song of controlling scale and thinking about, because it reflects our worries, right? We're worried about, oh gosh, is something going to kill me or is something going to change my life? Instead, these guys are like, okay, yeah, some of those big things might happen, but also in the short term, you might fall in love or you'll just make it through another night. And isn't that kind of sweet too? And you're like, yeah, it is. So
yeah, you just got to do what you can.
Exactly. And this song isn't meant to be your ticket to your last days, hypothetically. It's just your ticket to get through to the next thing, through the night, or to the moment where you're like, oh yeah, I guess things did kind of work out, or that thing I was worrying about really wasn't such a big deal. And here I am now in this new situation where I am content. It's just focusing on getting you to that as opposed to changing your entire outlook on whether or not like your world is okay or not. It's like, yeah, things will probably be fine. Don't worry any farther than that.
Yeah, like I think that's a good way to put it. It's like, yeah, don't worry any farther. Like what this song reminds me that I'm not sure but you and I are both really big fans of the YouTubers, the Game Grumps, right? Like Aaron and Danny, they play video games and they're kind of really wacky guys. Sure, there's a lot of people that don't like them because they're not necessarily that good at video games, but that's neither here nor there. I don't remember which episode it was, and they've been doing this for over a decade now, which is kind of a testament to their success.
They also started around like this 2013, like early 2010s era of YouTube. So how perfect that you're thinking of them here.
Yeah, and my, I guess, favorite of the duo is Danny Avidan, who is not only one half of the Game Grumps, but is a musician in his own right. And I'm a big fan of his band Ninja Sex Party, which is kind of they're like a comedy band, and it's like a 2-man act. He's like the front man, and then he has his partner Ninja Brian, who is this guy that never talks, and he's in a ninja and he plays the keyboards. And funny enough, like the guy that plays that character, Brian Wecht, he has a PhD in physics. So there's this whole thing. Yeah. And like I would say like music is Danny's main thing. And I think he's like in 3 or 4 bands currently. And Game Grumps was kind of this thing that he's just kind of tagged along for. I bring it up just because there was one episode I remember watching where he was talking to Aaron about his younger days, his earlier life when he was like living in New York City, trying to be a musician, the whole stereotypical starving artist trope. He obviously wasn't doing super well and struggling as new musicians can sometimes do. And he told the story of how there was a place he lived in New York, I think, and there was a doorman. I wish I remembered what the doorman's name was. But Danny would say like there'd be a lot of days where I'd come home and just be complaining about, will I ever be successful? Will I ever make it? Because like, I'm just running into obstacles and running into what feel like dead ends and stuff. And then the doorman would like listen very intently and just be like, you're going to be all right. Like without fail. And Danny would come and complain and the doorman would be like, you're young, you're going to be all right. And then he brings that up because he tells Aaron, it's like, when I look at my life and see how successful Game Grumps is, it's not something that I ever thought I would be a part of, let alone, be able to live off doing something stupid like just make jokes while watching you play video games. Because the funny thing is, like in Game Grumps, Danny doesn't play very often. It's more
Right.
Aaron behind the wheel playing games and Danny kind of providing commentary and them like riffing off one another. Occasionally they play like multiplayer games where they do like versus or co-op, but I would say a majority of the time it's Aaron and Danny's just there for the ride. I'm sure like he is the type of person that like spends a lot of time thinking about how lucky he is. And I don't bring that, and I don't say that in like a, oh, he's so lucky, but these things happen again to a lot of different people, and I think whether or not you're humble or not doesn't make a huge difference on if you succeed or not. But if you are humble, it makes the story, I think, a little better. And I think it's great that a guy like Danny is seeing the success that he is. He seems like a really genuinely cool guy. I got to see him play in a concert in Milwaukee several months ago as a Ninja Sex Party. And I remember at the concert, there was an old lady who I assumed was kind of bringing their grandkids or something to the concert as their ride. And she was getting into the concert as well. But then I think she passed out and they stopped the concert. And security, brought her over to the side, gave her some water. I remember Danny being like very concerned about, the well-being because he's a decent human being. And
yeah.
But all that, to bring it back to like the point of this is just like, yeah, I think having that mind, like the mindset of, yeah, everything's going to be all right is not bad. And most of the time it's like, I think a good way to just try to put perspective to the things that go on around you. Like if you're having a bad day,
yeah,
try not to let it get to you too much and try to like move on, not like necessarily like forget about it or anything, but like it's kind of one of those things where it's like the past has happened. Now just really kind of like focus on the future.
Right.
Be open to the possibilities.
Yeah. It like when people say, like when the Barenaked ladies say it's like odds are I'll be all right, or when your doorman tells you like you'll be all right. It's not a way of saying like, oh, your problems don't matter, be appreciative now. It's like a way of saying, yeah, this is a bridge to a moment where you will be content again. So think about that moment when you will be all right, when you will be happy, when you will be excited, satisfied, however you want to look at it. It's like you'll get to that moment. This is just a little bit of a transition in a way. And it's funny you bring up Ninja Sex Party too, because one of my favorite song by them is Danny Don't You Know, which is
that's a good
Dan Avidan talking like it's a letter to himself. It's a song to himself talking about how his younger self might feel awkward or might feel insufficient or dorky. And I think what really makes the song kind of perfect is that a lot of the lyrics indicate that there's a good chunk of him that doesn't change, like he's still kind of nerdy now that he's a 40-something-year-old rock musician and a YouTuber. There's parts of him that are still a little sensitive or whatever. And
he's not afraid to cry.
He's not afraid to cry.
What?
Exactly. That's chanted during the bridge, and it's fantastic. I highly encourage people to listen to that song in addition to Odds Are. The song's beautiful not because it's like, oh, you're going to change entirely and you're going to be somebody new, so just wait for that guy to show up. It's like, no, you're already kind of this guy, and you'll just come into your own, and you'll, quote, one of the lyrics is find your tribe. So there's a couple lyrics from the song that I think just really, they make me laugh, and they also, I think, speak to a lot of what we're talking about. One of my favorite lines is, it's part of one of the choruses, and it's, Danny, don't you know that you are cool as fuck on the inside? You're just going through an awkward phase from 12 to 29. And it's like super funny, but it's like it's a sort of broad acknowledgement of, yeah, things don't change overnight. Some things might not ever change, but you'll find a way for it to fit into your life. You'll find people who can acknowledge your faults and complexities. Like I talk so often on the show about how much Kate really knows my journey, knows how much my brain tries to eat itself alive sometimes, and she's She doesn't say, "Oh, I don't acknowledge the dark parts of Dayton. I don't acknowledge the confused part of Dayton." So like, no, she acknowledges all of it, and that's part of. If I were to write a song called Dayton, don't you know? I think that's what the kind of message I would get across to myself too. Like, there will be somebody who that will accept you even before your worries are gone. Your worries won't ever go away, and you don't need to purify yourself in order to be accepted. You don't need to purge these negativities and these worries before you can be part of something. It's like, no, you will be part of something, just in a way that's more beautiful than you could have imagined. So when people say, "Hey, it's gonna be all right," when these people genuinely say it, like I believe the Barenaked Ladies do, and how I believe that this doorman did with Dan Avidan, this that like that's what they're saying. They're like, all of you is going to be okay. Even these worries that you're carrying with you right now, even if you have them down the road, there will be a moment where like I'm like in a little bit of a better spot now. I'm a little bit more at peace than I was yesterday, and that's worth riding it out for.
I also think that as the Bare Naked Ladies sing in Odds Are, I feel like they're doing like that dad moment where, they pull up a chair and sit on it backwards to like
Yeah,
talk to the
it's so
listener
true.
about, things are going to be all right. But at the same time, it's not necessarily something or it's not necessarily something that will happen without you, right? It goes back to, I briefly kind of threw this out there at the beginning of this episode about, missing every shot you don't take.
Mm-hmm.
I think this song, Odds Are, puts out all those worries in very grandiose and hyperbolic terms about like getting taken out by a meteorite or a great white shark or getting hit by an airplane. But I think there's that core essence of the bridge being like, odds are long, so why not play? And like giving that gentle encouragement to put in a little like effort. You gotta play the game of life, and
Mm-hmm.
even though there are things that are scary that could prevent you from really trying, it still does take a little effort. I think they do a good job with the vibe to, one, encourage that behavior to be like, in the face of all these potentially bad things, there are some potentially good things, like, for like in this song specifically, like falling in love, which is probably something
Right.
that a lot of people would love. And just that gentle nudging of like, well, there's this little thing here, so why not play? Because something good could happen of it. You never know, even though there are all these bad things. To kind of transition that into like our lives, I think that line, odds are we're gonna be all right. So even though the odds are long, so why not play? Have you ever had moments recently, honestly, like, now, about things that you would like to play in your life, right? Like, I can think of a couple for me where every time I listen to the song, it does give me a little hope and a little confidence, right? Like listening to these dads give me that positive nudge, like, you go get them, sport, you got it. Anything, now, about a thing that you were struggling in the past with trying, but things that you want to do in the future.
Yeah. No, a really timely question for me because let me start with my dog,
Sure.
Miller, and I'll bring this around to something bigger, I promise. So I have a mini dachshund named Miller. You've probably heard him on a couple of these episodes, might even heard him a little bit tonight. And I've had him for a little bit over a year now, got him in August of 2024. And those first couple of months with him were a sensory nightmare. Like this, I love him to death, but this dog was just real troublesome, always getting into everything, could never settle. And I went from being really excited to have a dog to being like, maybe I'm not a dog person, you know? He really kind of crushed my will for a while. I'm using very dramatic language here, but I think anybody who's had a very difficult puppy will at least kind of hear what I'm saying here. And it really wore me down for a really long time. On top of getting Miller, we got house around the same time, so there were the elements of being a new homeowner that were getting a little bit crazy for me as well. I was really overwhelmed. All of this kind of added up a couple months ago to these feelings of, man, am I just like not suited to be a dad either? That's kind of a goal I've always had in mind for myself and for Kate, for us to be parents. And I really had a lot of doubts around the times when Miller was being really difficult. I don't like how I react to Miller when he misbehaves. I get frustrated really easily because, like I said, sensory nightmare. This is a loud dog. This is a stinky dog. This is a dog that'll lick you to death. The licking thing is kind of sweet now that he's really come around and become a sweet boy. But at the time, you're just like, I just don't want to be around this little creature. It's like, how am I going to be around a kid then? And gosh, all respect to people that I was trying to vent to, but so many of them were like, oh, wait till you have kids. It's like, what am I supposed to do with that, man? It's like, this is not helpful. Like, this is my problem now. It's like, this is this dog and you don't know it, but secretly in the back of my mind, yeah, I am thinking, oh God, what am I going to do when I have a kid? And it's something I've talked with my therapist a lot about, just how I'm reacting to being something's caretaker. I found out I'm like very protective and I want to keep the dog in line so he's safe. And I want to keep my friends who come and visit him. I don't want them to be annoyed. So I'm always like very like, oh, Miller, don't do this or don't do that or quit barking, whatever. And things have really come around recently. We've taken up formal training with him and he's really taken to it. We have a trainer come in once a week. Suddenly now I'm like excited to not only just be around him, it's like I've always loved this dog. I always say I've always loved him, but I haven't always liked him. But now thankfully I can say both. And now I'm like excited to interact with him because he and I communicate so much better now. Now it's kind of boosted my confidence that I could be a dad again, which is something that I'm still really excited about, and something if Kate and I are blessed to have him, I think when that time comes around, I won't be anxious about. Well, I will be anxious, but I won't be anxious in that sort of world rending kind of way that I thought I would be.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I have skills that I can build on now. In the same way I was talking about Danny, don't you know? It was kind of always part of me. I just needed to move the gunk out of the way. I needed to build on my own strengths as I like to think I'm a pretty good communicator. And thankfully, that's really what training is for a dog, and being a communicator and understanding your child's needs. I'm not going to claim to know how to be a dad, but I feel like that's a pretty solid foundation to build off of. So when I think about these things that I want to take a gamble on, these things that are part of life's big dance, big play, the roll of the dice. I do want to be a dad, and I am as ready as I'll ever be for it, in the sense that I'm probably completely unprepared, but I'm willing to dive in anyway. So these next couple years, like I said, if Kate and I are blessed to, that'll be my big play, and I'm excited for it.
I hope, things go your way. And I think like with parenting in general, like I don't think a lot of people know how to be a dad. Everyone kind of just wings it because everybody
Sure.
has like a different experience, and you honestly just got to do the best the best that you can.
Right.
I've always had like the mentality of like if you're not anxious, I feel like that's a red flag because
Right.
the that anxiety I feel is something that is there to remind you that you're taking this seriously, you're taking this importantly, and you don't want to fail.
hmm
You just can't let that, I guess, eat you up.
Right. And that's the difference maker, right?
Yeah.
Is, just acknowledging that anxiety within myself, but then understanding that I can't let that fuel my decisions. I can't become reactive like I was in those early days of raising Miller up as like a real young pup. He's still a puppy, but it's about how we talk to each other through our own little language that we've made up through training and through just connecting more and spending more quality time. It's about building on that as opposed to being like, oh, I've got to control him. I've got to keep him from jumping on people, from going to the bathroom inside, and it's like he figured all of those things out. And I just had to trust him and give him clear signals. And like I said, just find our way and use that as this as the fuel, as opposed to the worry or the concern or the fear of failure. That is good to be there, but it can't be what drives the action, I think.
Or it can't let you at least like prevent you from taking the action.
That too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's it. It could just as easily shut you down as it could fire you up. And I there's that calmer part of myself that I've learned to rely on a lot more. And I'm going to let that sort of be my North Star here as I hopefully step into that dad role here for the next couple of years. So yeah, that's like my big quote unquote risk, I guess, if you want to call it that, about the next big like chapter of life I'm going to be taking a chance on. How about you? Do you have any big ambitions like that ahead of you?
I mean, I think I have like a couple, but in terms of quick to action things, especially things that when I listen to this song, like what does the Barenaked Ladies do to inspire me to go out and do? I honestly think that this podcast as an idea turned into an actual thing may have been subconsciously been nudged along by this very song. Any like creative endeavor, right? Like that's not something that I'm very used to. And I know you in the past have done podcasts before, so I was really fortunate and lucky to have you as a co-host for this. This was definitely an idea that I had in my mind that like it'd be cool to like make a podcast, whether it be because like I'm entering like a midlife crisis or to just have fun with life. Like maybe a midlife crisis is like that crossroads where you become one of those dad rockers, right? You get this realization that like like you want to just do it. And
Yeah.
it reminds me of this thing, or it reminds me of something that I've said to my therapist too, where I've talked to him a lot about like my social anxieties and how I would love to be more social with people because I'm naturally a more reserved person. And because of that, I don't, have as many friends or close friends as some other people might have. I just have like acquaintances that I can get along with. But at the end of the day, I don't have a lot of people that I can just like call up and talk about nothing with. And so I've been trying to like do more things, like go to meetup events and download like apps to like meet new people and potentially be friends and go to like these events where people of shared interests come together and kind of like taking chances of it going well. Very much so like to the spirit of the song of, odds are long, so why not play? Things could go wrong, but I'll take my chances. And there have been a number of times where I've like almost backed out of like going to say like a meetup event because I'll make up an excuse of like, oh, am I really like in the right mental state to do this? Like maybe I'm tired. Maybe I'll just take this night off and try again next time. And fortunately, I think because of songs like this and other ones that have that like very gentle, nurturing nudging to like, encourage you to go out into the world and live in it. There have been a lot of moments where I'll be like walking out of my apartment down to the garage into my car and I'll have one of those weird moments. Should I? Shouldn't I? And then fortunately, I have this thought where I go, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? I have fun? Yeah. And then like I can think of a handful of times where like that has happened where like before I get into my car, I have a moment of hesitation and I have said out loud to myself, what's the worst that could happen? I have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it like kind of, unfortunately, that like kind of shocks my system back to be like, why am I worrying about it? The alternative is to do nothing. And if I do nothing, nothing will come of it.
Right.
At least if you try, there is this chance of it not going as well, but you have the possibility and potential for something good to come out of it.
Yeah.
Sure, it could be better, like there are still times where I will convince myself to kind of just stay in when I make plans to try and go out and be social or do something, or create, a creative project or things like that. So, it's not perfect. I haven't, like you said, we don't really switch from A to B overnight. It's a gradual process that involves incremental lifestyle changes, if I may quote an SNL skit that I really like. But I think us talking about these songs has definitely been a positive influence in kind of moving that needle a little bit. And this song especially, about looking at all the potentially horrific things that could happen in life, but also like the cool things that you might have a small chance for, like falling in love. And even in the song, falling in love in Odds Are is the only thing where they actually assign odds to it. And even then, it's like, it's either 23-1 or 4-1. Like, it's not clear odds. You have a high percentage that it doesn't work, but honestly, that shouldn't be a deterrent for you to not try.
Right.
Like I said, being more social is definitely something that I have been trying to get myself to be more of. And just doing things I think might be fun, especially like marathon mixtapes, right? This is something that is quite an endeavor, and something that as we've gone through it, I've been learning, all the ins and outs of making a podcast. And it's not, a cakewalk, but it's been well worth it, in my opinion, and something that I don't know if I would have had the confidence to do before I heard songs like Odds Are.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've alluded to it a little bit, some of these moments where, you're unsure about a social function and you think about, yeah, what's the worst that could happen? I have fun. I love that. I'll have to remember that that little nugget for myself when I am anxious about social engagements as well. Or then you talked about it here with this podcast, obviously, as well. It's like, here we are at episode 10. It's like, we're a full season, quote unquote, of volume in. And just months ago, we were talking about this in very broad terms, right? So here we are, all right, on like the other side of something, in a place where we can see kind of all the worries and insecurities along the way, but we're like, oh, now we're kind of on the other side of something. So that kind of leads me to my next question, where can you think of another sort of specific example where you were deep in the trenches of worry about something, and now that you're X amount of days, months, years away from it, you can look back at it and say, oh yeah, things did turn out all right. Like, even if you don't mind me asking, like, what were maybe some of those bleakest moments that didn't feel like they were going to be all right, and now you can say that you have found some sort of peace with it?
Oh, I mean, that's a great question. I don't know if I have anything off the top of my mind in terms of like the really bleak moments. I think I'd have to like dig deep and think about that for a while. But one part of my life that I've talked about quite a number of times on this podcast was my study abroad program in Japan, right?
Yeah.
That was a huge part of my life, and it was definitely something that, even though I wanted to do it before, it was still something that felt very daunting in the moment and had a lot of anxiety. I mean, because you're going to a different country for an extended period of time. Like, this ain't summer school, you're there for a year, at least in my case. And I remember I had the fortunate advice and counsel, I guess, of my brother, who definitely paved the way for me because he was older. So he was going through college before I was, and he studied abroad in Hong Kong for a whole year. And so I could kind of see that play out. I've been able to witness has definitely spurred me on to do a little bit more. Maybe it's a previously unknown, quiet, competitive side of me that I never really knew I had, but just trying to one up him sometimes, where, he went to UW-Madison, so I went to UC Berkeley for college just because I didn't want to go. Well, it's not that I didn't want to go to UW-Madison. I remember when I was going to college, picking colleges, I was planning to go to UW-Madison because all my friends were going. But then my mom suggested I also apply to UC Berkeley. I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? But I don't really care. And then I got in. And then the reason why I went was predicated very slightly by the fact that my brother tried and didn't get in. And then I'm like, ooh, well, I'm going to have this experience that he didn't have. And it went also into like the study abroad where he studied abroad in Hong Kong. But in my family, as I was growing up, we would spend summers in Hong Kong with my grandparents all the time. So in the back of my mind, it still felt like a very safe pick. And so I went to Japan where like I didn't necessarily know the language, didn't know anybody there. And it was very much like a big leap of faith that did have a lot of anxiety beforehand. And I also remember there was even more trepidation because I went in 2012, a year after the 2011 earthquake in Japan, where there was that big that nuclear reactor disaster in 2011 that made like a big portion of northern Japan like uninhabitable for a long time because of the radiation. I remember initially the program that I had picked to go to was going to be in Sendai, which was just like one prefecture away from where that nuclear disaster was. So my parents then suddenly were like, oh, you don't go, it's not safe. But I kind of wanted to still go, and so I changed programs and I went to Osaka instead. I had a different experience that I had planned out, but I also was there for a whole year, and it was based off of advice that my brother gave me where like if you're going to study abroad, you got to go for at least 1 year. And I think it might have been to this day some of the best advice I've ever gotten, because it definitely felt true looking back, where I would not have had nearly as full and deep an experience of living abroad had I only been there one semester as opposed to two. So that whole scenario, that whole time in my life, I think, was one of those times where I think I had a lot of hesitation to do the things that I wanted to do, but with some fortunate, gentle encouragement and nudging from those around me, I was able to get enough confidence to make the first step. And then it's another kind of like arguably trite proverb, but like a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And for me personally, I think that's such an apt proverb or saying, because for me, I think once I start something, it's a lot easier for me to follow through and not give up after the first step. On a little side note that's a little related, when I was in grad school, I'd have to give a lot of presentations, give group meeting to present all the stuff that I've been doing in research and stuff. And sometimes it'll be with my own lab. Sometimes it'll be in a more like public setting where I'm giving a presentation of what I'm doing to other labs at the university. And I always I'm the type of person that will be nervous up until, the presentation starts. It's that anxiety that builds up. But like once I say like the first sentence, it's kind of like, well, this roller coaster is at the top. It has started to go on the downhill. There's no stopping this now. Might as well just buckle up for the ride and steer this as best as I can. That was kind of a long-winded way to say just like, oh, my year in Japan, I think was one of those moments where it was one of those things I think in my life that I can definitely see looking back on it was an event in my life that I had much hesitation to do, even though it was something that I wanted to do, but was able to not eventually, because I did it, but like I was able to kind of overcome that anxiety, take that first step, and have my life become better for it.
Yeah.
What about, do you have any moments like that?
Yeah, I've got a whole lot, Jordan, actually. No, I really do. I think about a lot of the transitions that I've talked about here. Moving from Marathon to Milwaukee to go to college is a big one. Making my career change when I was really dissatisfied with the way that my work had been caught up in my identity and how I really wanted to clarify that. God knows I had tons of anxiety about those, but to provide a little bit more of a different example, but one that I think is also a really positive one, too, that's very fitting of this last episode is, and this song specifically, is when Kate and I began dating. So Kate and I actually met at new student orientation freshman year at UW Milwaukee, and we knew each other as friends for up until my senior year when we started dating. And we went to the Milwaukee Public Museum together, and she had invited me. I misconstrued it as a date, but which she teases me about all the time. But at the end of the date, we just continued hanging out, and it wasn't forced. It wasn't. I think about it now, and it's like, man, I was following like my calmer instincts, right? You know, when oftentimes when we think about the meet cutes or the sort of early days of romance, we think about like that, ooh, kind of heightened, kind of like shoulders tight, kind of pent up anxiety about these kind of things. But like around Kate, I realized, oh, this is a person my guard is down around her, and I'm not spinning in circles about it. Like my head isn't buzzing about it. Like I feel a certain kind of serenity around this person. So let me follow that. Let me see where this leads. And a lot of this is sort of preceded by me just absolutely having no game. Like I I was in a long-term relationship in high school, and throughout college, I had crushes and quick little dates here and there, but nothing that I ended up pursuing because it didn't feel organic. I
Mm-hmm.
They kind of drove me to those moments of like, ugh, I don't like this. This doesn't feel right. So when Kate and I started dating or hanging out in a context I had considered romantic, I just like found myself really drawn through it, not just drawn to it, but like by the end of that day, we had gone from just hanging out as friends. And I said, I didn't ask her to, she teases me about this as well. I didn't ask her to be my girlfriend. I looked at her and I said, I would like for you to be my girlfriend. And she said, I agree. So,
With a question?
yeah, she's like, I think she'd actually wanted me to ask instead of just being like, I declare our relationship. So, thankfully, she got past my awkwardness, and here we are almost, oh man, we started dating in 2016, so it's like 9 years now, and it'll be 10
Almost
before we know
10.
it. A full decade.
Yeah.
Wild. And despite all my anxieties going into relationships, the idea of a long-term one, and a marriage, I had placed so much weight on that, and I was really nervous because I didn't feel like, I think in my darkest moments, I didn't feel like a lovable person. I'm like, oh, I've just got too much shit going on. There's, I'm not X, I'm not Y, I'm just Dayton, and it doesn't really fit neatly into the category of what people really want, in a romantic partner.
Sure.
So there was a very brief time in my life where I was resigned to, even though it's always been a very important thing to me. It's like, oh yeah, I want to find a partner. I think there was a time where I'm like, I might just be alone and I'll have to figure that out. And not saying that this is a goal for everybody, but I knew it was something that I wanted. And when I found it in Kate, in a very surprising way, I thought it was going to be that like really intense, like, oh my gosh, my heart's on fire kind of thing. And it's like, oh no, it's like my heart's calm. Like my
Sure.
my mind is quiet around this person. Again, she's a kind of person that reaches in and grabs that sort of center and says like I know this is Dayton. There's all this other stuff too that is absolutely Dayton, but like this is your best self, and we can connect on that and make sure that that's what's driving you. And as I mentioned earlier, she's helped me with that with the dog. And I know that she's the kind of person that will make me the best dad I can be. So despite all of those anxieties, there's those darkest moments of feeling like, oh, I might just not be compatible with anybody. Here I am now in a marriage. I couldn't conceive being this happy in a marriage before, and now I'm here, and it's like, oh, this is it and then some. So thank God for that. And to say that everything turned out all right is almost an understatement. So I
Mm-hmm.
would like to like reach back to that date and be like, don't don't worry about those tense moments. There's those moments of anxiety that you have in the dating world and things like that. It's like there will be a call to a person that you can build something with, follow that, and it'll lead you to Kate. I can't be thankful enough for that.
Everybody will get led to Kate.
Yes, Kate is the center. But for my life, she really is. So I can't say enough good things about her, and she is the prime example of that I can offer up to the anxious side of Dayton, the anxious versions of Dayton that exists in the past, and be like, keep pushing, because there are people and situations and comforts in life that are worth toughing it out for, and more importantly, will help you tough it out.
I honestly think, like, you said that so well, and that anecdote and that part of your life is kind of the epitome of what I saw in this song in the context of our podcast. And I think you've capped this song, or you've capped our podcast season 1, volume 1 perfectly, in my opinion, with that little story. Because I feel like with Odds Are, at the end of volume 1 of Marathon Mixtapes, it is kind of a look back at our lives filled with the anxieties, the hesitance, all the negative things that we see in ourselves and try to fight through, and then taking that step to try something that you wanted to do in spite of all that, and seeing the success that comes from it, even though, you know, you could say that you had long odds to even succeed in that, which, again, I think this was the perfect song that you picked for the end of volume 1 of Marathon Mixtapes, because it really does feel like a call to action after listening to all the, you know, worries and potential negative things that could happen. Like I said before, this feels like not a post-credit song, but a post-all of this song, where you and I have talked for probably about 15 hours now, documented on Marathon Mixtapes, and we've shared like some of our lows, some of our highs from the lows, pieces of our lives that maybe we haven't told a lot of people about. And I feel like we can use that as a demonstration for anybody that cares to listen to our podcast, and then go and listen to Odds Are by the Barenaked Ladies with all that in mind, and think about your own life, because now we're going to turn the tables on you. You know, what's something that you've always thought about doing, things that you wanted to try, things that you were scared to because of the odds or the potential negative outcomes. But even in spite of that, like the Barenaked Ladies say, why not play? And if you'd care to share, I know I would love to hear about it. I'd be interested to hear about anything that you've taken away at all from our podcast. And so for the last time on volume 1, I'll just say again, you can always reach out to us at our email, marathonmixtapespodcast@gmail.com. The link will be in the podcast description as always. And Dayton, as we end volume 1, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I just appreciate your listening here, Jordan. I know that a lot of what we shared, you've already known a little bit about, but to really dig into this together and to share it with other people is an entirely different beast. And you've been just an incredible co-host through it all. I feel like we've ended our own little apocalyptic newscast in a way, talking about the chaos, the alien invasions, and the zombie uprisings of our own lives. And here we are, smiling at the end, winking at the camera. I love it. I think I'm happy to be here at the news desk with you.
Same here. And with the apocalypse going out behind us, any nuclear fallout, we'll just ride off into the sunset.
Absolutely.
So for volume 1 of Marathon Mixtapes, this is it. To not belabor the point any longer, but thank you to everybody who has listened to our podcast all the way up to this point. I think I'm always surprised when even my friends, reach out and say they've listened to an episode here or there. But if you've made it to this point, thank you so much.
Yes, can't thank you all enough. And I'll throw Jordan into the deep end here. I think there's more to come.
All right. Whoa, 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 whoa there. I think we got to take a moment to stop and appreciate everybody listening to our volume 1 of Marathon Mixtapes. And I think we should give everyone a little bonus track. What do you say, Dayton?
It sounds good to me.
Talk about the album as a whole.
Let's do it.
We thought we'd add in a little bonus for all those of you who decided to stick with this and listen through all 10 episodes, or done the smart thing and just listen to episode 10 because it's the longest one.
I'll see what these guys are all about. Just listen to the biggest episode.
Yeah, I'll see what they're all about. Let's listen to the last episode. It's like the guys that just like read the last page of a book and then call it good.
Or the people who watch season 2 of Severance without watching season 1.
Okay, listen here. I have stuff. I'm a busy man, Dayton. I'm a busy man. I don't have time.
I know you were.
Did I ever explain to you my explanation for that? Of why I just hopped into season 2 of Severance?
I'm sure you did, but I think I was too disgusted for it to stick.
That's fair. But it actually relates to, I think, our podcast as a whole. So, do you ever watch Severance?
No, I haven't actually, and that's another layer why this is so ridiculous that I'm holding you to this. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Who jumps into season 2 of like a narrative-driven show? That's where I'm coming from. But I'm somewhat familiar with the show, the main premise, the main impetus behind the show.
Sure, but honestly, the reason why I jumped into season 2, why I didn't start with season 1, was mainly because of how I guess I view life. Just like Marathon Mixtapes being a collection of our thoughts and our life stories through episodic vignettes presented through the lens of different songs that we enjoy, I explained myself to a friend on why I jumped into season 2 of Severance in the following manner. The people we meet in our lives, even if they're the strongest of friends, the like tightest of partners, rarely do we ever meet our friends from the beginning and ride it out to the end. A lot of times we'll just come in the middle of their story, spend time with them, be it good or bad, and then we go on our separate ways. And I must have been high or something when I decided to start season 2 of Severance, but I was thinking like that, being like, it'll be fine. It'll be like meeting someone for the first time. They're well into their story, and I'm kind of just joining in here. And if it's very exciting and I want to learn more about this person, I'll go and ask questions, or in this case, watch season 1. I remember I told that to a friend, and she immediately got mad and was like, I hate how much logic that has.
I'm with you, honestly. Like, not in terms of that I would do that, because
you shouldn't do that.
As much as that does make sense, it's also wild behavior. But I totally see where you're coming from, and I think it is a welcome way for people to enjoy this show. And moving forward, I think we're really excited about this format and the feedback we've received from friends and family. So I think we'll be recording a volume 2 down the road, but I think you should be able to jump into any episode of Marathon Mixtapes and get a good idea of who Dayton and Jordan are. You don't necessarily have to listen to our episode in 100 years to understand our episode on Odds Are. Like, I think we really wanted to make sure we are always presenting a unique but fairly complete dimension of ourselves when we presented these songs to one another. And I think that's what makes the playlist altogether, all 10 songs, really interesting as well, because they work as, you use the word, vignettes about us. Like, I think that's the most apt a word. So they each work about like, oh, this is about how Dayton and Jordan think about this, or this is how they think about that. But then all together, they sort of present this narrative of hope about life and wondering about our connections back to home and our connections to the things that people are kind of telling us that we need connections to. And then towards the end, you find us finding peace in friendship and peace in our sort of own hope for the future that we've carved out for ourselves. It's really cool. It wasn't something we intentionally did. We really just presented these songs to each other and we're like, this one's important to me. Well, this one's important to me. Great, let's go. But then when you listen to it, it's like, oh, this feels like a through line. There's something
Hmm.
going on here. When was like the first time you noticed that? Because we've been sharing this playlist back and forth for a while now.
Yeah.
Was that something that you found early on?
I think I noticed it early on. Like you said, we presented each other with the songs that resonated with us and songs we felt were important to us. And then I knew going in that I wanted to kind of have a take turns type of approach where I share a song and then you share a song. And so we kind of filled in our songs. I took the first, I guess, half of this playlist, every odd numbered song, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and then you took 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And I think once we had the full list completed of what the songs we wanted to talk about, I looked at it and I was like, oh, these are like some good songs. And I didn't recognize all the songs that you had picked. And so I went and listened to them. And then I noticed that I think I did end up tweaking it slightly. I think I asked you if we could switch like your 6 and 8 song, but I think that was the only thing I did. I think we had naturally just put in our songs in such a really nice order. And like Dane
Mhm.
said earlier, like I think we tried to structure this whole series as like independent vignettes, kind of like an anthology series where you don't really necessarily need to listen to one episode to get meaning from the other ones. We tried to keep them pretty separate, but if you've made it this far, you'll know that like we've referenced previous episodes constantly. The later episodes do that a lot because we've recorded first episodes earlier, and then we make some callbacks to there occasionally.
Right.
My sudden distaste for Brandon Flowers will pop up from time to time in a couple of episodes later down in the series. But
Oh yeah.
I do find it fascinating how well all the songs kind of settled into what you said, having like a through line. I know I briefly talked to you off mic about this, but to me, such a cool like vibe that it gives off, at least to me, where volume 1 of Marathon Mixtapes feels like watching a movie or playing a video game. I think I told you that like we start off episode 1
Hmm.
with 100 Years by Five for Fighting, and while it is a really strong emotional song for me, and I feel that it has a lot of ties with the rest of the songs, it does feel still like separate from the other 9 songs. But it was a great introduction, I think, into our podcast. To me, it feels like not part of the story, but part of what did I call it before? I think I called it like the chapter select screen of like a DVD, a movie DVD, or like the start screen of a video game where when you boot up the video game, you have the title screen and then the little selection of start game. And I feel like 100 years, not epitomize it, but I feel like the 100 years just like is that for me, where it really sets the tone, I think, for what we talk about in the rest of volume 1.
Yeah, I feel like there's little details of 100 Years that almost allude to a lot of these other songs. Like, we didn't even think about it necessarily, but 100 Years, talks about that relationship between the self and your ambitions, the self and people's expectations for you. And we hear things like that. And of course, that sense of yearning and that sense of fulfillment in life. And we hear echoes of that in Between Me and
Mm-hmm.
You, in Home, in Start Over, even a little bit in Numb Little Bug, definitely an Endless Bummer, quite a bit in Say It. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely in Say It. Foreign Girls is all about reflecting on that sort of thing. For Good is expressing some graciousness for that. Odds Are is, well, we can get to Odds Are, but like we've said in our just the episode we just finished up here, that's like the launch pad to the next step. That feels like the everybody's getting up from the theater and the movie's over. The 1 through 9 is the movie, the 10 is the context outside, the meta piece outside of the music and the story itself. That's kind of, you're like, wait, that's kind of connected though. So it's cool to see 100 Years lay this foundation for what ended up being really all of our conversations. So it's a testament to that song, like you said, being the title screen, the chapter select. There's little notes, little messages in there that kind of hint at what's to come.
Yeah, and I think why it works is that 100 Years as a song is about like a life from start to finish. And the way we talk about our songs in this podcast, like songs 2 through 9, from Between Me and You to For Good, is also like a progression of a life. And so 100 years kind of demarcates the young, the middle aged, the old, and kind of encompasses the progression of a life in its entirety in the song itself. And then we kind of start at song 2 with the story of Between Me and You. And I feel like songs 2 through 4, Between Me and You, Home, and Start Over, are like the first chapter of us being young, talking about how we might have struggled with certain things in our lives, but we like, persevered or like tried to learn things from them. Very much like the early on part of the story where here's our protagonist, here's our main characters, here's them going through life.
And here's the conflict.
Yeah, here's the conflict. Or here, yeah, we're going to introduce the conflict. You're going to get to know them a little better and find out, the complexities of their life. And then we move on to chapter 2, which is Numb Little Bug, Endless Bummer. And it kind of like a little bit of start over for me, where it's like, man, things got bad. Like the Empire Strikes Back of the like original Star Wars trilogy, where like this is like the low point where we see, the main characters going through some rough stuff. But then as we talk about our stories, looking back in retrospect, talk about the things we learned, the kind of looking back. But I think the stuff we talk about in those episodes definitely were in the moment pretty dark, pretty low compared to some of the other stories we talked about. And then we get to song 7, 8, 9, Ite or Say It, Foreign Girls, and For Good. And it's like coming out the other side of all those conflicts. You had mentioned this phrase earlier where it's like kind of making peace. I don't know if I would agree 100% in like making peace, but definitely like coming to some form of resolution with our conflicts and kind of growing as people from them. I think Say It is still kind of like the transition between chapter 2 and 3, where there's still a lot of pain, but you're learning to kind of get through it by having these introspective thinking sessions on your own, especially with Ite, right? Because it's talking about losing somebody and reminiscing on all the stuff that you should have done or like that you wanted to do, but now you don't have a chance because you missed that window.
Yeah.
And then it kind of eases into more uplifting notes, I think, with Foreign Girls and For Good, where you kind of look back in retrospect again, but like look at all the positives, sharing those messages anyways. Because I feel like with Foreign Girls and For Good, right, you have those messages like, thank you for being my friend. And in Foreign Girls, it's like, I just want to let you know I love you all. I feel like those lyrics in those songs are written and sung, and they're not necessarily caring that it reaches the person that they need to, but it's something that they just, needs to get said.
Right.
For the sake of being said, to be out there, and then feeling a little of contentment, right? Like, I missed my window to say it, but I'll say it now anyways, just in case, I can leave this legacy or memory or message behind. And then finally we get to track 10, Odds Are, which you hopefully have just finished listening to us talk about, where, again, I love this metaphor I have in my head where we sit people down in a movie theater to like talk about our lives, and then 100 years is the title screen. We go through this narrative from songs 2 through 9, and then the lights come on, and then the people start to leave. And then once they're outside the theater, hopefully they look at the world in a slightly different way, or they start thinking about aspects of their lives that might have some overlap with our stories that they, people might not have thought about before. And then that like little slight change in contextualization, or the slight change in like thinking about certain things in, our listeners' lives, is represented in my mind by Odds Are, where like it transitions from the story itself to the impact of the story on anybody who's listened to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is again, not intentional, but it is cool how this narrative sort of grew out of this, or we found this narrative to kind of place over this song structure. I think it also speaks to the fact that all of these songs have shades of both like hurt and joy in them. Even really bright poppy songs like Odds Are, there's a little bit of darkness to them because of
Sure.
their sort of cheeky subject matter, or sometimes because of some of the nuances that they introduce. But and that I think also speaks to just the way that we've been looking at our journeys post Marathon City, or even all we've talked a lot about our time growing up here too together. But so much of this has been comparing. Okay, we grew up on the same block, but where did we go after that? What kept us friends? What did we stay connected over? And what drew us closer together too as friends? And it's often this bittersweet combination of joy and hurt. Like we've always bonded
Mm-hmm.
over the media, like music, but also definitely video games and movies and television and new media like online on YouTube and things like that. You and I are always sending things back and forth to each other. So everything here has the joy, has the laughs, has brighter ways of looking at the world. But then we've also, especially over the past couple of years, have started to share more of our deeper pains with each other. Some of it kind of having foundations in our hometown, and other parts of it,
Mm-hmm.
things that we picked up along the way. Each song kind of brushes up against both. And I think that's what makes these songs important to us as well, is because they capture each of us in our complexities. And that's what good art should do. It doesn't blandly display the world or its people as one way. So I hesitate to say this because it sounds a little bit melodramatic, but I think all of these songs made me feel seen to some degree, not just by you, but by some of the original authors as well. I think that's often a trite term to say, like, "Oh, I feel seen," but that's really how a lot of these pieces make me feel. It's like, oh, somebody's going through something similar and knows that there's other people out in the world going through something similar, or oh, there's something I've found joy in, and maybe other people find joy in it too. So this is my invitation for them to enjoy it with me. With all of that said, it's like that's what we want the podcast to be too. Is this
Yeah.
us experiencing these songs in a certain way, and then we want people to experience the podcast, and then in turn the songs through it, so it becomes this sort of nesting doll of media experience and media reflection and reflection on your joys and your hurt. So I love how much sort of rolling back on itself this show ended up doing for us, and hopefully for our listeners too.
Yeah, and I don't think it necessarily needs to be like a nesting doll of sorts, or it could be more of like just a web of connectedness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like I think life in general is just bittersweet. It's hard to have any good without bad. I know this was a comparison is the thief of joy,
Oh yeah.
but you can't really have happy or sad things without a baseline to compare it to, because somebody's happy could be somebody else's sad, and everybody's like baseline of what constitutes happy is going to be different. You know, you have people in like third world countries that are kind of like starving, and I'm sure that like if you compare what they are trying to strive for compared to like I don't know, like Jeff Bezos, who has like more money than almost everybody else combined, like his level of happiness or even like sadness might even be higher than other people's like life end goals,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard to say with certainty what is good, what is bad. I think they all come together as two different sides of the same coin. I'm looking at the list right now again of our track list, and I think that is summed up very well in the middle two songs, Numb Little Bug and Endless Bummer, right? Because like you were saying, there's some hurt, but those are probably arguably maybe if we take Odds Are out of the equation, like two of the most high BPM poppy songs on the list.
Right.
And yet they kind of talk about the most dark parts of life the most explicitly.
Right. Right. Yeah. Especially we talked a lot about literally, like medical depression with Numb Little Bug, and we talked about the ways that
Mm-hmm.
people cope with that in both prescribed and unprescribed ways. And Endless Bummer, I mean, some of the things on there just exhibit some of the worst impulses we have in terms of our relationships with other people. So yeah, it's like it's interesting to see how we have to package up sometimes some of those lowest moments in some interesting packages just to be able to talk about them. I think that's certainly something I've seen and something I tend to do when I dabble in poetry writing and lyricism, especially. I always find myself using humor to not just make something an idea more digestible, but to again show the different shades of it. And
Yeah.
that's definitely what these songs do as well. The Sarah Bareilles of kind of vibe of I'm Behold's Numb Little Bug definitely grabs your attention, and the sort of Beach Boy flair of Endless Bummer makes you tune in a little bit more too. So that's one way that these songs exhibit that kind of multidimensionality.
Yeah, and we talked about it in the respective episodes, but I think part of it is like it comes off more approachable and less like whiny. I think we talked about in the Numb Little Bug episode, but like if you made that song with the same lyrics but made it really like Evanescence-y type or like
Mm-hmm.
Linkin Park, I feel like it wouldn't hit as hard because it would just be like, oh, it's just, some teenager going through an emo phase, or it's like going like too hard into it. Where I feel like cool thing about Numb Little Bug is that juxtaposition of a pop song with darker lyrics, because to me it mimics the way that you see, people with anxiety and depression like function in the world, or at least, like the high functioning ones
Sure.
that for better and for worse are able to go about their lives masking it for the sake of their loved ones around them. And it paints a more fuller picture because people are complex. And I think if you go too one note in any direction, it kind of loses that impact if you're trying to go for something that portrays, life and the complexities of what it means to like be a person. What we contain multitudes.
That's what they say.
What they say. And I'm glad that we got to also like end our playlist on songs like Foreign Girls and For Good, and even Odds Are to an even stronger degree, where I'm glad we got to talk about the really like strong, impactful things in our lives that will probably follow us to the end. And even though they're
Mm-hmm.
on the darker side, we got to kind of move on, or we got to move on with them,
Right.
and then place them with songs like Foreign Girls and For Good and Odds Are, where we get to talk about it, right? I feel like it represents us being able to like look at it with a different perspective, try to take not necessarily maybe not the good in those situations, but being able to say like, hey, these things happened to us and they changed our lives in very significant ways.
Mm-hmm.
But during this whole tumultuous period, some good came out of it, and some, friendships have been strengthened, some maybe have fizzled out, but being able to look back and think about those friendships that may have fizzled out, but still placing value on them and being able to talk about it. I really liked how the vibe of the playlist throughout the narrative, throughout the different songs, kind of just developed, evolved, and like played out. And it kind of like reminded me a little bit of the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. Have you seen that movie?
I haven't. It's been on my list for forever, and maybe I'll have to watch it now that you're bringing it up.
I bring it up just because the way that movie plays out, it's such a wild fever dream in terms of like scene changes and plot. It's like every genre of movie
Sure. Yeah.
crammed in together, and it keeps changing, and it's very like abrupt, and it's not necessarily cohesive from scene change to scene change, and it can be a little jarring. But then like for some odd reason, I forgot the director's name. I think they're like the Davids or something, because it was co-directed by two guys with the same first name, and it somehow has like a through line throughout the whole movie that makes it so much better because of the fact that it's just like going crazy, jumping universes and genres, and like at some point the characters are played by pet rocks.
Fantastic.
Like it's one of those movies where like when you try to explain it, people will be like, "What are you on? Like this sounds insane." But then if you take another step back, it's like, oh, it's just a story about family. It's about a mom and her daughter, and the mom feels like she's becoming disconnected with her daughter, and she's just trying to fix that relationship. But the way it's presented is just so wild.
Well, I think somebody could very reasonably also look at this playlist on paper even if you know all the songs, and be like, okay, we have Abandoned Pools, that band who did music for Clone High and Wicked on the same deal, along with a Japanese rock band as well. Like
Yeah, yeah.
it's one of those things where until I do think that this stands as a playlist, and we'll be sure to share it as a complete playlist for everybody to listen to for their convenience after this episode drops. But I also think once you understand our stories, you're like, oh, this playlist is absolutely Dayton and Jordan and the things that they've been through. It's the whole thing, you know. We are the context in a way,
Mm-hmm.
but also at the same time, you look at us or you look at these songs on paper and you're like that person that you're trying to describe everything everywhere all at once to. They're like, what are you talking about? This doesn't make any sense. And then when you watch it, you're like, I get it. This is everything was in place for a reason.
Yeah. I don't think I can stress this enough, but we just put our songs down on the list as we thought of them, or at least I did. And we switched off every other episode with a song from me and then a song from Dayton. And the fact that the songs, like, just, again, are very disparate. You got a Japanese rock band, you got Bleachers, you got a Broadway play, you got Michael Bublé, you got the Barenaked Ladies. And yet, like, the songs falling one after another transition pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at it, it's like, especially like Foreign Girls to For Good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I would ever have expected seeing like those two songs back to back ever on like a playlist. But then, you know, like you said, when you like sit down and listen to it, you're like, oh, it's as if they were like two puzzle pieces that have the perfect connection.
Right.
And like that example specifically, because Foreign Girls just ends with a repetition of, I just want to let you know I love you all. And then that is exactly the entirety of For Good, where it's two people singing about, I just want to let you know I love you. Because even though we've been like fighting and we've had conflicts, but you're my best friend. Yeah, like it just fits so well naturally. And we just kind of put our songs in an order that we wanted to talk about them. I know I picked 100 Years, Home, Numb Little Bug, Ite, and For Good. And I thought about it for a little bit of like what order I wanted to put them in, but this was still like, I didn't know what songs you were going to pick. And then I'm like, oh, you know, 100 Years. Well, I will say this whole podcast, I think, was started by like 100 Years. I knew that was going to be the first song.
Yeah.
Regardless. And then the other four songs kind of came in after I sat down and thought about it for a while. And I kind of just put them down in an order that I thought would make sense before even knowing what songs you picked. And then I think you kind of filled in the gaps with your songs.
Right.
And yeah, it was quite miraculous, I think.
Yeah.
To see this playlist come together and fit together so well.
Yeah. And I've been thinking a lot about the concept of playlists too. I'm currently in the process of making one for my wife Kate for our 5-year wedding anniversary. I hadn't made one for her in a while, just as life's been crazy the past couple of years, but it was something I did a lot for her especially when we were dating in college and dating it early in our professional careers. But I really want to make her another one here for our 5-year wedding anniversary. And I was wondering if you had ever made a playlist for anyone, because, you know, to also put kind of a button on what we've been talking about here, this is kind of like Dayton and Jordan's playlist that we made for the world, even though we didn't realize that's kind of what we were doing. If we could give the world a mixtape, if we could give our hometown a mixtape, just to have the people out there, whether they're listeners or not, remember us by, it would be these 10 songs. So have you had that experience of sharing a playlist with somebody, crafting and kind of picking and choosing specific songs and specific orders and things like that? I know we were a little less specific about that, a little less intentional about some of those details here, but it kind of shapes out in an intentional way. As for making a playlist yourself, what does that process mean for you? Is that something that you've done before, done as a gift for somebody or anything like that?
I don't think I've ever made a mixtape for anybody. I have definitely made playlists for myself for different occasions and situations for sure. And I've done maybe like half of making a mixtape where like I feel like I've had friends where I've sent them like multiple songs that fit like a theme.
Yeah.
but I haven't necessarily like, ordered them and made a playlist or like a mix CD for people. I share a Spotify account with a friend, and we kind of go back and forth sometimes sharing songs and making like, well, we have a shared playlist where we like put songs on it independently, and it becomes like this weird amalgamation of what our friendship is, which is really wild.
Yeah, that's cool though. I love that.
Yeah, kind of. It's like one of those like in those like whiskey bottles where you keep pouring different whiskeys in it as you drink it.
The infinity bottle.
Yeah, but if like two different people were drinking like different whiskeys at home, and they just kind of periodically drive up to a third location to pour the leftovers in like a bottle, and then you can sample that whenever. But I do like making playlists. Like I've told you before, I like making playlists for jogging, because
Yeah.
running is fine. Running on a treadmill is kind of inane and depressing because you're kind of running in place staring at a wall. And it's nice to like shake that up with like some music, to listen to, so you don't have to focus on like a piece of drywall. And if when the weather's nice, I try to, jog outside. But even then, like, even though the area I live in is really beautiful and there's a lot of parks and nature I can run through, I find that making playlists and listening to different songs can really like alter my state of mood
Me too, for sure.
to really pump me up. And I've made like playlists for different lengths. Like I have a 5K playlist. I have like a 4 mile playlist,
Yeah.
and like a 5 mile playlist that have like different moods at different points.
Right.
Going back to volume one of mixtapes, I think the way I like making, I guess, playlists is doing it in 3 parts. You have, your first third where you kind of set up the situation. In my jogging playlist, those are usually like the more fun songs, kind of get you excited, and but not necessarily like too fast or too high BPM, and they kind of just ease you into it. And then you have like the middle third where it's like sustaining. These are the type of songs that kind of keep the energy up, but again, still not super intense. That's like the last third where like, all right, you're near the end. You got to dig deep and push through. Here are all the like really high energy songs to like get you to dig deep and try to push the limits. What is this? It's like the rule of thirds. There's like everything in threes, and I feel like volume one of Marathon Mixtapes does this again, as I had kind of like outlined, where we had the first third about life and meeting us, Dayton and Jordan, the middle third of it just being like, ooh, things are getting rough, and then the last third where it's like, things were rough, but I think it ended on a good note, and we found some treasures along the way, and we can end on a more happier note, a more fulfilling note.
A classic 3-act structure, really.
Yeah, it really is. 3, I've heard, is a magic number. I think I learned that from Schoolhouse Rock.
Did you ever talk about Schoolhouse Rock on this show?
Oh, we have. I mean, we haven't yet, but who knows? Maybe down the line we can. One of those songs might pop up.
Yeah, you never know. There's always some interesting memories tied to even in the most innocuous of songs. And I think we'll find that a lot in the songs that we've been kind of knocking around for volume 2. I know that those were the songs that I have been kind of shortlisting so far are
Sure.
ones that I have very strong memories associated with specific eras throughout my life and specific people too that tied into those memories. And when I think about those songs and a lot of songs in volume 1 too, I'm transported back to very specific times and places. And that's the power of music, baby. It can drive us in the same way it drives you on a run, and it can help us relax and go back to a certain time and place. Like that's a big reason why I listen to music in the first place. It's just like, oh, I want to be here. I want to be thinking about this thing, or I want to be feeling this feeling. And it's also fun to share that too. And that's a big reason why we're behind the mics right now, is like when you have those really exciting moments, just listening to a song, reconnecting with a song, reconnecting with memory. I think it's fun to share as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we've said it every episode, right? Everyone's got those songs that make them go, "Oh man, I felt that." And I think music is one of those beautiful art forms that in a very short amount of time can convey a lot of meaning, just like paintings through the medium of something more visual. I think people sometimes, maybe not everybody, but I think occasionally you forget that we have other senses. Listening, our auditory sense of listening to music, listening to sounds, they can definitely make us reminisce about our past. Our sense of smell, I think, is scientifically been studied to be one of the more strong senses that is linked to memories and things like that. And yeah, I think we have a lot more that we can talk about. And I know I had a fun time with this little project. Even when I first started pushing this idea out, I thought I would, maybe we'll do a volume 1, see where it goes, maybe do a volume 2. But as like kind of we've been making this podcast, I know we've already been talking about like volume 2 and volume 3 and other, how many songs and stories we can talk about with the world. So I'm just wanted to kind of like end this volume 1 with just like how appreciative I am that like this project could come together at all, and that we've found something that have given us at least legs to continue.
Absolutely. And just like I said, we've been knocking around a few ideas for volume 2, and we're at the point where we're like, okay, we need to narrow songs down. It's not like, oh, we've got a few more things to talk about. There's still, I think, a lot that we're excited to share with each other and with this small but clearly very loving audience that we've developed so far too. So I'm really excited to see what comes next.
Yeah, me too. So I guess thank you all again for listening to Marathon Mixtapes. Thank you for listening to Volume 1. Maybe we'll see you in Volume 2 as we continue to discuss the similar messages that we've heard upon our listens of all the various songs that we've picked and the deeper topics that we navigate as our unique journeys continue beyond Marathon, beyond Volume 1, beyond Volume 2, and beyond. I just want to say again, thanks for listening to Marathon Mixtapes.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for listening. And thank you, Jordan.
No, thank you, Dayton. Hope to see you in Volume 2.